Hello, everybody. Good to be back. Um, so you'll notice that I'm glasses free today, and that's because Mr. Mindful stepped on his glasses this week. You know how humiliating that is to come out here and report that. Yes, yes, be mindful. Know where you are at every move. Notice what you're doing. Yeah, oh, I'm stepping on my glasses. Very good. God. But, it is what it is. So Betsy's out there doing her best at the same thing, and I just got an email from her that she hit something with a car today. So, Mr. and Mrs. Mindful are just bumping their way through the world. So, I want to talk to you today about absence and presence, because the key is that every client I've ever had, including myself, has wanted to desperately to be there when awakening occurred. That's the key, is I really want to be there. I want to see that. By God, I've been waiting for awakening so long. I've been working so hard for awakening. I've been doing all these practices and talking to all these darn teachers and reading all these books, spending all this time and money and frustration, and I want to be there when it happens. What I'm not understanding at that point is that the presence, in my case, the presence of Fred guarantees the absence of conscious awakeness. The presence of conscious awakeness guarantees the absence of Fred. I can have conscious awakeness or I can have Fred, but I cannot have both at the same time. I just can't do it. They are mutually exclusive. So this comes from misidentification, because it just, what I've been trying to do all these years, haven't we? We've been trying to wake up this unit. This unit's not going to wake up. It's not the first time I told you this, but we just can't get it through our heads until we do. The unit is not going to wake up. Fred is not going to wake up. It is not going to happen. And truly, this Fred, the thing that we would call Fred, it didn't wake up. Fred is not awake. I guarantee you that. And if Fred ever does come out and declare to the world that he's finally got it, he's finally awake, what he's really doing right then is he's coming out and declaring to the world, I lost it. I am asleep at the wheel again, because the presence of a Fred who would be enlightened guarantees the absence of conscious awakeness. Mutually exclusive. I can have one or I can have the other. So if I'm really, really just desperate to wake up Fred, I'm in for a big disappointment. I really am. Even if I do, even if I do an awakening session, I'm still in for a disappointment, because I'm not the one that's going to wake up. Now, to say I'm in for a disappointment depends on how open I am. If I'm open, so people will sometimes start the thing by saying, well, I know there's, that I'm so-and-so, and I'll just ask them, I say, so are you sure of that? And they'll say, oh, yeah, sure. So that. Is that correct? Yeah, I know it. So are you willing to unknow that? Because that's the key. Is that we bring all these assumptions to the altar of awakening. And we want to wake up with all of our assumptions in place. But guess what? The presence of our assumptions guarantees the absence of conscious awakeness. We're not going to be proven right when we wake up. This is really critical to see. One of the things that people don't like to give up is they don't like to give up being right. They just can't stand it. But the problem is that the presence of rightness guarantees the absence of conscious awakeness. Another thing we don't like to give up is a victim story. God Almighty. And I had a victim story. I did. And it kept me from waking up until I gave up on that until I just gave up on that victim story. I just gave up. I just really didn't give a damn about what happened to this anymore. I had lost interest in the Fred story, and that's when awakening occurred. It didn't occur before that. Doesn't mean you need to be desperate and fed up with, you know, your story in the way that I was. You don't. I mean, number one, it can be, you know, you could be a little bit more advanced being than I was, you know, which is that some of you actually want to wake up because it's, you know, it's just because it's a spiritual thing. It's a good thing. You're drawn to it, this and that, the other. You're not all as shallow as I was, which was, I want to wake up because I want to get out of this suffering, and that's that. So I was hoping to be catapulted out of my victim story. And as long as I was hoping to be catapulted out of my victim story, I didn't wake up. But the moment I gave up, I didn't care. Okay, there's a victim story. Okay, that's fine. Because what I had done was I had wanted to commit suicide, and I'd asked Betsy about it, and she had asked me not to. And, I mean, this is just the short version. And so I was living for Betsy. I didn't give a damn about living. I really wanted to commit suicide. I didn't want to cry for help. I wanted to commit suicide. And when Betsy, I love Betsy so much that when she asked me, you know, please don't. Let's try this. Let's try this first. And then I decided, okay, then that's my new job. My new job is to make Betsy Hackett less miserable than she is, than she would be otherwise, than she would be without me, because she was just all attached to me for whatever reason. So I lost interest. You're fast losing interest in your story. Let me tell you something. You don't find yourself watching this or talking to this unless you're not coming to the end of your rapture with your story. And that's the truth. You know, it's just this teaching can't exist. This teaching cannot exist unless there are people who are ready for it. And there can't be people who are ready for it if the teaching doesn't exist. It's two ends of the same stick. So when you get ready for something this direct, because that's the key, this is just so astonishingly direct that it gives us no wiggle room, that we are willing to give up being present for the awakening. That's what I do, and to help you come to see what you're not. And once you see what you're not, you don't have to take that person to the awakening. You see? And so then all of a sudden there's a window of opportunity. I can introduce what you really are, and boom. But my point is just to notice that the very thing that wants to wake up is the very thing that is guaranteeing the absence of it. And I know you probably heard something along those lines before, but it's important to not go try to figure out what that means. It's important to just take that as a literal truth. Because then, I mean, actually, if you look at it and you say, well, I just can't give up on me. There's nothing I can do. I just can't do that. If you can take that to heart, you'll wake up. Because what you're really trying to do is you're trying to hang on to the illusion that you're in control of the life you think you're living. But that thinking you're living that life, that's delusion. That life is living you. Life, I should say, is living you. Life itself is living you. You are not living life. You are not having a life. You're not in life. You are life. Life is living you. Life is living this body right here, right now. And it's living it fairly easily, and at least for this unit, fairly skillfully, because I'm not in opposition to it doing what it wants. See, this is the thing. I'm not opposed to what is. And see, when I'm actually in opposition to the way that my awakening is unfolding or isn't unfolding, I'm in resistance to what? This. We call it this present moment. or this moment. We call it this. Either way, or any way. But whatever it is, I'm in resistance to what's going on. Now let's see. What is it that's actually going on? In the absence of a story about what should be going on, what is it that is always already going on? What is? How about that? See, in the absence of a story about what should be going on, then what I notice is there actually is only what is going on. And that's what I have to surrender to, is what is, in whatever form it's taking right this moment. This moment is the way that I am presenting myself to myself, here and now. That's all I ever have to surrender to. But I have to surrender to this. I don't want to surrender to this, you say, because I am looking to surrender to a little kinder and gentler this than this. I would like things to line up for me, then I'll surrender. Well, that is typically a lie. Because when things are going on our way, we don't care about surrender, man. I'm living the dream. This is great. Wow, I've got the girl, I've got the money, I've got the job, I've got the house. Whoa! Who wants to wake up from that? I don't know many people that want to wake up from that. You know? So if that's your dream, good for you. But let life get miserable, then I tend to get flexible. So if you're in a bad life situation, that ain't nothing but God's grace. Isn't that awful? But when I was living in the park, I was enjoying God's grace. I didn't know I was enjoying God's grace. I thought that I was enduring God's curse. But what I've noticed is that the difference between a curse and a blessing is typically time. It's just timing. Is that all the worst things in my life have turned out to be blessings, and some of the best things in my life have turned out to be curses. When I first started smoking, I thought, man, this is wonderful. I love this. I want to do this forever. Yeah, and yet it turned out to be a terrible decision, and one of the good decisions was giving it up. The one thing I could never think of doing for decades is the one thing that I did do, and it was what made the difference. It was, as my old sponsor used to say, it was the second. What I found out was it was the second craziest thing that I was doing. So. There's my Skype coming on because I accidentally hit the wrong button. Mr. Mindful reached out on his computer and hit a wrong button because something came up that took me out of the little bright picture, the picture, and put something else up on the screen, and I was lost, and I went for something, and I wasn't mindful about it. So look at this. I mean, you know, how the hell do I come on here and tell you to be mindful and stuff when I'm not doing it? But what I'm really trying to tell you is that, you know, is that what I'm trying to do, even trying to do it, is working for me. I don't have to master any of this. I have to be willing to be mastered by this. Woo! Now there's a mouthful. So just remember that the presence of the one who wants to awaken guarantees the absence of awakening itself. So become willing for awakening to show up any way it wants. Any way it wants. Any time it wants, in whatever circumstance. Just allow awakening to show up. Just show up. Just allow awakening to show its face. It wants to, and allow it to show the face it wants to show you. See, we all, I mean, hell, who doesn't want that angels and trumpets moment? You know, oh God, you know, I've had those, and it's great. Didn't have anything to do with awakening. I mean, not really. Really, no kidding. Some of the best insights I've ever had were. And that's what a non-dual insight is a mini awakening, and it's just like, oh, that too. Oh God, I can't believe it. Everything changes because I just saw through this one little thing, one little bit more. Because remember, we always know what we know, but we don't know what we don't know, and that, you know, I read the other day. Meister Eckhart talking about the humility of our perplexity. Is that not a beautiful turn of phrase? The humility of our perplexity. And what he's saying there is, we can be right or we can be free, but we can't be both at the same time. And I can wake. There can be awakening or there can be me, but it can't be both. So I hope that helped. Talk to you later. Bye bye.